A single hair. A drop of blood. A smudge of a fingerprint. If you leave anything behind at the crime scene, a forensic scientist will find it. No criminal is ever safe from these new cops. At least that's what crime dramas tell us. But how does it work in the real world? You're about to find out. Good evening, I'm Nicholas Campbell. You're about to see 4 cases that really challenge the popular view of forensic science. We begin in Spain, at the scene of a deadly bombing, where a single fingerprint turned an ordinary man into one of the world's most wanted criminals. It's morning rush hour in Madrid. What you are about to see is the result of random terror. Bombs, timed to kill the maximum number of people. 191 innocent commuters slaughtered. All of Spain mourns as the victims are counted. Spanish police are everywhere, hunting the killers. They find a van. Inside, detonators, like the ones found in the wreckage of the train. And a plastic bag. On it, a clue to the bomber's identity. A fingerprint. They send this print to police around the world, hoping to find a match. They're in luck. In the United States, the FBI identifies their man, a lawyer from Portland, Oregon. 2 of the FBI's top experts are convinced the print belongs to Brandon Mayfield. Mayfield is a Muslim convert with an Egyptian wife and 3 children.
La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, God is great, there's no God but God.
The FBI swoops down on Mayfield's tiny law practice and arrests him. It's a victory in the war on terror. Fighting to save him is lawyer Steve Wax.
He has had no involvement in the horrible bombing that occurred in Spain.
Meanwhile, Mayfield is locked up in a Portland detention center. He's given a false name to protect him from jailhouse justice. But he's worried about what might happen if word gets out there's a suspected terrorist on the range.
I was feeling really creepy that, they may find out and they want to be patriotic all of a sudden.
The fingerprint evidence is damning. Even Mayfield's lawyer finds it hard to believe he's innocent.
I did not look him in the eye and say, I believe you. That bothered him. That, in the first few days, he needed to hear that. I say, I don't know. I say, I have to make the assumption that what the government is giving me is correct.
Wax's best hope is to find a reason for the judge to doubt the fingerprint evidence. He takes a chance, and he hires an independent fingerprint expert for a second opinion on the FBI's findings.
His first words to us are, sorry guys, this is Brandon's print. sorry guys, you know, the FBI has said there are 15 points of comparison. I find 16. Whoa. Brandon is obviously devastated. We're devastated. You know, the defense attorney's worst nightmare. You've just proven the government's case.
Wax will now have to fight his own expert's testimony in court. And it's going to be an uphill battle. Many say fingerprint evidence is just about foolproof. It's been accepted in courts since the 1920s. It's believed that no two fingerprints are the same. These tiny ridges give each of us a unique identity stamp. To make an identification, experts have always zeroed in on the number of similar points on two prints. The more points in common, the more likely it's a match. One of the leading fingerprinting experts lives on Vancouver Island. David Ashbaugh wrote the Bible on fingerprinting, a book used by police around the world. He is a retired RCMP forensics expert. For years, he's argued that fingerprint analysis was treated more like an art than a science.
It just seems so wishy-washy. It wasn't structured the same way as other areas of forensic science. And because it wasn't structured that way, it felt very subjective. There was a lot of how you felt.
So Ashbaugh set out to turn the old art of fingerprint analysis into something more precise. Rather than just comparing points, he began studying fingerprints as if they were maps.
If we were going to compare a map of one town to a map of another town, if we looked at the intersections and put dots on them, we could actually compare the position of the dots on the maps to see whether the maps were the same. Now the problem is, even though the dots are in the same spot, maybe the roads aren't in the same place. So it's the roads that make the maps unique to that particular town.
Using this method, we asked Ashbaugh to compare the print found on that plastic bag in Spain with Brandon Mayfield's.
The ridge traverses through the whole print. This traverses through the whole print. The next ridge traverses across, stops over here, but this ridge starts here and traverses through. So this is a difference. Fairly lengthy ridge running across the bottom, very short, so we have a difference in length. This ridge runs underneath the ridge coming from the right. This one is the opposite. It goes over top, this goes underneath. And if we keep going out farther, we find more differences. So it's my opinion, if I were looking at this and hopefully in a totally unbiased way, that I would have felt that these two prints come from different people.
Did the FBI make a mistake? They've never asked Ashbaugh for an opinion, but 3 other experts say the print is Mayfield's. In court, there seems little chance he's innocent.
The chief terrorism prosecutor, Mr. Gorder, gets up and to his credit, says, well, Your Honor, some information has come to our attention which may cast some doubt on the reliability of the identification of the print. Huh? You know, where are we? What planet are we on?
It's an astonishing reversal. The Spanish police investigation is now showing that the print belongs to an Algerian man. The FBI sees the evidence and decides there's only one thing it can do.
The FBI regrets the hardships that this matter has placed upon Mr. Mayfield and his family.
Mayfield is set free.
This war on terrorism has gone to the extreme, and innocent people are victims as a result.
The FBI has since launched a sweeping review of how it handles fingerprints and brought in David Ashbaugh to teach their experts his techniques.
The perversity here is that because this is a white man born in Kansas, middle class professional, it's easier for people to see if it can happen to him, it can happen to me.
When we come back,
The whole porch already was flames.
a Saskatchewan man in prison for murder,
Did you kill your wife?
and the science that convicted him.
Arson investigation, I'm sorry to say, is the swamp of forensic science.
On the surface, it was a clear-cut case. A man kills his estranged wife. The weapon, fire. Next, we take a closer look at the forensic evidence that left a Saskatchewan farmer fighting to clear his name. Flames engulf a lonely farmhouse. Inside, a grisly surprise.
A search of the residence located a partially charred body of a female.
Police are called in, and a murder investigation begins.
There's unusual things at this location that are leading the police to believe that foul play has occurred.
Before the night is over, Leon Walchuk is wearing handcuffs.
Because of the circumstances at the scene, this fellow was arrested.
Leon Walchuk insists he's an innocent man, a victim of bad science.
I've had no prior criminal conviction for anything.
For the last 5 years, this 42-year-old Saskatchewan farmer has been fighting to clear his name from a jail cell.
Something's not right. That's not the understanding that I had of the system going into this. I had, I guess, what would be deemed an idealistic kind of outlook on our system.
But police say Walchuk had a motive. He was in the middle of a bitter divorce. On the night of the fire, his wife, Corey Shevsky, came to the farm to pick up their 2 kids.
I forget exactly what I said, but something along the lines, the kids are mom and dad's, I'll be right back, going to get them, be right back. And I went around the back of the house, jumped in the truck, and started backing out, and all of a sudden there's this big crash.
Walchuk says he came around the corner to find Corey had driven her car into his house.
My son, I guess, had a hockey stick sitting up against the house. Out of the blue, she just comes and just right in the side of the head, dropped me right on my knees.
Walchuk says the blows continued as Corey chased him into his basement. Then, he says, the smoke detector went off.
It was just like a wake up for me. I just picked up the stick and I just kept swinging at her until she let me go.
From here, the case gets murky. An autopsy shows Corey was severely beaten and could have been unconscious. But experts at the trial argue over how Corey got her extensive injuries. Some say she could have hit her head when she smashed the car into the house. Walchuk says after freeing himself from Corey, he ran upstairs. He says he saw Corey getting up behind him.
I came around the corner, there was nothing I could do. The whole porch already was flames. I hit the fire a couple times, and my jacket caught fire, and I just threw it and I got out of there.
Walchuk says he barely escaped with his life. Corey died in the fire.
Did you kill your wife? No, I didn't. She almost killed me, though.
Director of Forensic Guidance Section. Date is the 31st of March, 1998.
Within hours of the fire, arson investigators are on the scene. They do what thousands have done before them at a suspicious fire scene. They scour the charred timbers looking for any clue that someone intentionally set the house on fire. The investigation zeroes in on the basement stairs. That's where Corey's body was found. They want to know if a flammable liquid was used here. When gasoline is poured on wood and then ignited, it leaves behind a powerful clue. As the gas burns away, blackened pools of charred wood remain. They're called pour patterns, and they find them all over Walchuk's basement stairs. Jim Fairbank handled the arson investigation.
There was 3 of us there that are all experienced fire investigators, and all of us believe in the fact that there was a flammable liquid poured on those particular stairs.
It's enough to convince a judge that Leon Walchuk started the fire that killed Corey. He's sentenced to 16 years in jail.
This is not right. I mean, this is way out. Just no way that they get away with this, is what I'm thinking. Like, how, are they going to get away with this? And yeah, I guess they have.
Austin, Texas is an unlikely place for Leon Walchuk to find a second chance. But it's where he found this man. Gerald Hurst has spent his life working with fire and explosives. This Cambridge University-trained scientist invented one of the world's most widely used explosives and ended his career as chief scientist for the largest explosives company in the United States. Then his life took a surprising turn.
About 11 years ago, someone brought me an arson case. I was absolutely appalled at the miserable quality of the fire investigation. I managed to get that woman out of prison. It took me 3 years.
Ever since then, Hurst has dedicated most of his time to taking a second look at arson cases. He works for free, and so far, he's helped clear more than a dozen people.
Although I'm retired, trying to do as little work as I can, these cases just keep coming along.
Around this way, and he come out. He said, "Kids aren't here. We're going to get them," and he went around that way.
Hurst has been to the Walchuk fire scene
And these tops are not affected by what's going on with these.
and looked at the stairs at the center of this investigation where the gasoline was supposed to have been poured.
I think I need to take pictures of this and this up here. Yeah, I agree.
Today, at our request, Hurst is putting the forensic theories against Leon Walchuk to the test.
What we're going to do is investigate the thing ourselves to see what kind of patterns the gasoline produces. I don't know.
Hurst has enlisted the help of fellow fire investigator Ken Gibson and a local Texas fire department. They've carefully built a replica of the Walchuk stairs.
We're going to more or less duplicate that kind of pour, ignite the gasoline, look at the fire patterns that it produces, compare them to what was at the scene. The first photo we get is a clean stairway. But if
Gerald Hurst has been testing arson investigations like this one for more than a decade. He's got his reasons for being skeptical.
Arson investigation, I'm sorry to say, is the swamp of forensic science.
The science has taken a beating in the last decade. Experiments have proven many time-tested techniques to be completely false.
There are an awful lot of investigators who really practice methods that are similar to those that we used in witch hunts hundreds of years ago. Now look, you've only got the lightest coat of char, and soot mainly, on these stairs.
Hurst and Gibson move in for a closer look. The so-called pour patterns on the stairs from the Walchuk fire scene are burned through the plastic runner, and in some cases right through the wooden stairs. They were charred, blackened, and deeply burned.
This is hardly burned at all. There is no comparison between this and what you see at the fire scene. I mean, you got stairs chewed up at the fire scene.
Absolutely nothing like the picture.
Shoot this step here showing that this wood is pristine and paint.
The fire on the test stairs barely penetrates the plastic runner, let alone the wood. In most cases, all the gas fire did was produce soot.
It tells you that it's a bogus case. There never was any gasoline poured on that stairwell.
The man who handled the original arson investigation, Jim Fairbank.
It's very easy to do a fire investigation a year later or 2 years later and try to recreate, but the difference is we were there, and we were there the next day, and we saw what happened. In fact, I saw what happened that night and the intensity of the fire there, and you know, I stand by my conclusions, and I'm sure that the other two investigators will do the same.
Gerald Hurst believes there's a simple explanation for the fire. When the car smashed through the wall of the porch, it plowed through electrical wires, and it was those broken wires that ignited the blaze. As for the so-called pour patterns on the basement stairs, he says they were caused by something called fall down. That's burning pieces of wood and debris dropping down from the ceiling. A common misinterpretation of the evidence, he says. And while Liam Walchuk doesn't deny hitting his wife that night, he insists he didn't start the fire that killed her.
And I think people have been ruled by their emotions in this case. I've seen 100 like it. I think he's an innocent man, yes I do. And I think so because his story tracks very well with the evidence that we see at the scene. And I think so because I always presume that a person is innocent until proven guilty. And I haven't seen any proof that this was an arson.
In the meantime, for Leon Walchuk, the hardest part is what he's lost. Both his parents have died, and his children are growing up on the outside without him. All he has left of his family are these 2 letters.
I've got one here from my son. It says, "Dear Dad, thank you for the picture frames. You'll never believe what we did today. We went for a walk in the woods. We actually we took a walk back to the farm. That would be our home. Probably my mom took him. And it says, I miss you. It's very much, and I wish I could see you. Love, Stephen." The other one's from my daughter, Kimberly. It's, "Hi Dad, how are you? I'm fine. I want you to come home because me and Stephen are waiting at home for you so we can be a family again." Shoot. Can we take a break, guys? Is that okay?
When we come back, a forensic science that's convicted people for 40 years.
They were just stunned that this was going on.
And the family that fought back.
It was devastating to hear the FBI say that this is a match.
What do you do when the only evidence at a crime scene is a shattered bullet? What do? You call in the FBI. They provide a forensic tool that's helped convict criminals for the last 4 decades. That is until one family fought back. On a blistering hot evening in July of 1995, a secret deal is set to take place in this small New Jersey town. $40,000 in cash for a set of rare coins.
That's commonplace in the coin business. It's like the diamond business.
It was a deal that cost local coin dealer Robert Rose his life.
How well did you know Robert Rose?
Well enough for him to know my name.
Rose was shot 4 times in the head, execution style. According to the evidence, the last person to see Robert Rose alive was this man.
Even the inmates themselves kind of congregate, like school children, you know?
Jackie Bain is a professor of criminology at a New Jersey college.
You know, the criminal justice system is a triumvirate.
The coin shop shooting, as it's known, was about to become this crime teacher's top priority. That's because it was a crime that hit close to home.
It was July, so it was hot out, and the Mets were playing, I'm sure. When I got home, there were messages from my mother to call.
The man accused of the crime was her brother.
She said, he's been arrested for murder. And I said, what? I mean, I remember I kept saying, what? I couldn't believe it.
Jackie Bain was like a second mother to little brother Michael.
I remember him, you know, loving to go to the game so we could get the hot dogs, and he always brought his gloves so we could try to catch a foul ball.
Baseball was a big part of their family, as were baseball cards.
I bought him his first set when he was about 10 years old, and he got into card collecting from then, and as well as coins. I gave him his first coin book and told him to fill it.
Buying and selling coins became a way for Michael to make some extra cash. And it's what brought him to this coin shop meeting in July 1995. Michael says he paid $40,000 for a set of rare coins that night. But Michael swears when he walked out of that coin store, Robert Rose was very much alive.
He said, you know, this is crazy. He didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't know anything about it. I just know my brother. I know the facts of the case. His character's not like that, and his soul is not like that.
The police knew Michael Bain had met the coin dealer that night. He'd admitted to that. But they had nothing to connect him to the murder. No fingerprints, no eyewitnesses, and no murder weapon. The only physical clues at the crime scene were the tiny bullet fragments scattered inside the victim's head. Could they be connected to Michael? The FBI was called in to find out. Comparative bullet lead analysis, as it's called, is a forensic tool pioneered in North America by the FBI. Over the past 40 years, it's helped put people in jail in hundreds of cases around the world. It was even used in the JFK case. According to the FBI, every single bullet carries the story of its origin. Bullets are made from large batches of lead, and each batch of lead has its own metallic signature. So, when two bullets are found to have similar sets of metallic impurities, that means they came from the same batch of lead. And when the signatures are identical, the FBI will argue that they came from the same box. They call it a match. Michael Bain used to own a .22 caliber rifle. He reported it stolen 7 months before the crime, but he still had bullets at his house. The lead signature of those bullets was compared to the fragments found in Robert Rose's head. They were a match. Bain was convicted. His life was spared, but he was sentenced to spend the next 35 years behind bars.
It was devastating to hear the FBI say that this is a match. You know, you think about DNA now, fingerprints, that how can you get, it must be a match if they're saying it's a match. And all the while I kept thinking, as I was sitting there actually in court, thinking, I wonder if this is so. Can they really say this?
Jackie Bain's search for answers brought her to this man. If anyone would know about the forensic secrets at the FBI, it would be Bill Tobin. He's retired now, but he was an FBI agent and an FBI scientist for more than 20 years.
I had some nagging questions that lingered while I was a forensic metallurgist there.
Tobin used to work in the same FBI lab where bullet lead comparisons took place. and he remembers doubting their results at the time.
I rationalized that obviously this has been going on for so long that they must know something that I don't know.
Jackie Bain's phone call gave him a chance to find out. It didn't take Tobin long to make a shocking discovery. There wasn't a single independent study to back up the conclusions being drawn from the FBI's bullet lead analysis.
At that point, I decided what I was seeing was rather startling. And at that point, I felt a proper scientific study needed to be done to either validate or invalidate the practice.
Tobin assembled a team of people to help him investigate, including 2 companies that actually supply the lead for bullets. Armed with raw data from the lead companies, he and the team pieced together some surprising results.
I think it even opened our eyes. It confirmed the suspicions that I had had from a metallurgical perspective.
They discovered something no one before them had ever checked. The signature of the trace elements inside a bullet simply aren't unique. It contradicted the FBI's claims. In other words, bullet fragments can't be matched with bullet boxes. The science was completely bogus.
This was about trying to end a junk science that had been allowed to propagate for close to 40 years.
It's an important scientific discovery. But what does it mean for people like Michael Bain? He was still behind bars. Tobin went to bat for him in court, argued the science that convicted him was false. Recently, Bain and his sister Jackie got the news they'd been waiting 10 years to hear.
Finally, last March in 2005, when my brother's case was overturned in large part based on the bullet lead analysis that was used in the case, it was like a miracle happened. It was great. I was crying, I was screaming. It was a long day coming, but you know, the journey's not over yet.
Then, in September of 2005, the FBI made an announcement that would affect hundreds more cases around the world. After 40 years, it would no longer use bullet lead analysis.
I just felt totally relieved that at least the possible wrongful convictions that this could have been responsible for is now no longer a reality.
300 cases are now being reviewed, and there's a Canadian connection. One of those cases involves a shooting in northern British Columbia. In 2002, the RCMP hired the FBI to conduct a bullet lead analysis. So far, the Mounties will only say the case remains unsolved. In the meantime, Michael Bain is preparing for a new trial. But this time, he won't have to fight the FBI and their bullet lead comparison evidence.
It's really tough when you see them walk away and they can't walk away with you, or when you see the doors closed. I miss him very much. And I miss his life for him, if you know what I mean. I feel bad about that. He's missed so much of his own life.
When we come back, it's supposed to be the perfect science.
I was the first to say, yes, let's do a DNA test. DNA is 99.9% accurate.
And the scientist with a surprising warning.
There's lots of potential for human error in DNA testing.
It's the gold standard. It's cleared and convicted hundreds of people. DNA. That's a science that's rarely questioned. But all that changed when a Texas teenager was convicted of rape. It's the one thing every woman fears. An unwitting victim pulls into her spot at this Houston apartment complex where two men jump into her car and kidnap her at gunpoint. They take her on a joyride through the streets of Houston. It's dark. She can't see their faces. And then they come to the end of a deserted road, where they force her into the back seat and take turns raping her. When it's over, they let her go. 5 days later, the woman thinks she sees her attackers on the street. Police quickly track them down and make an arrest. One was 16-year-old Josiah Sutton.
I pretty much, shocked, like, who, me?
His mother, Carol Beatty, will remember it as one of the worst days of her life.
I got a phone call at work. Josiah just got arrested. I just grabbed my things and told my boss that I had to leave.
Police have Josiah and a friend in the back of a patrol car. From a distance, the victim identifies Josiah as one of her attackers, even though he weighs 65 pounds more than the first description she gave police. Josiah and his friend are charged with the rape. But the police don't have much of a case, just a sketchy ID by the victim. So they ask for a DNA test to place him at the scene.
I was the first to say, yes, let's do a DNA test. Of course, DNA is 99.9% accurate. This is what you hear on the media. This is what you hear on all of the crime shows. So of course, my faith lied in DNA.
The Houston Police Department Crime Lab does the test. The results favor Josiah's friend. His DNA doesn't match samples found at the crime scene, so the police let him go. It's a different story for Josiah. His DNA is a perfect match.
I was like, how possible? Ain't no way, it's impossible.
Josiah's case goes to trial. The DNA convinces the jury. In July 1999, he's convicted of kidnapping and rape.
The jury deliberated less than half an hour. They came out with the conviction. 25 years, that's a long time. For my 16-year-old child to be taken and say that he would never be home for 25 years, that was a hard pill to swallow. He said he had thoughts of suicide. He was very angry. He said many of days, Mom, I'd rather be dead than be here. This is like hell.
Josiah insists he is innocent. He asks for his DNA to be retested, but that can take years.
I wanted someone to listen and no one would listen. When you go and you say, well, this is my son and this is what happened and he's innocent, they said most mothers believe that their children are innocent.
Josiah remains in prison, without hope. The months and years crawl by. And then his mother, Carol, sees something that changes everything.
The procedures being used by this lab for typing DNA are simply not reliable.
A news story on TV about the lab that tested Josiah's DNA. The lab is accused of doing sloppy forensic work. The gold standard of forensic evidence is in doubt. But isn't DNA evidence supposed to be foolproof? We take that question to Jana Holmgren, a criminologist at Calgary's Mount Royal College. She's been called to work on high-profile cases, and she teaches defense lawyers how to interpret DNA evidence.
The majority of people believes that DNA typing is a perfect science. DNA is just DNA. My fear is just that DNA has become this overpowering phenomenon where it's like people are almost willing to scrap the traditional judicial system, forget the jury, forget the judge. We will just have a laboratory at the courthouse, and you go in and give your DNA. Here's my blood sample. It's like, does this match? Does that match? Convicted, not convicted.
A DNA test is a complex laboratory procedure. And like fingerprints, the crucial moment comes when scientists interpret the results. So we ask Holmgren for her opinion of Josiah Sutton's DNA test. The results are startling.
In the report, the DNA expert failed to include one of the visual probes that we can see that was found on the genes. It's really, really hard to see, but there is a bit of an outline here of a circle, which cannot be excluded. If that had been included into the report and put into the database, it would have shown a no match. He would have been excluded.
An independent expert in the U.S. comes to the same conclusion. The lab made a mistake. Josiah is innocent. On March 12, 2003, Josiah becomes a free man.
My son has been proven innocent. All that I wanted to prove in the beginning was his innocence.
The Houston Police Crime Lab is shut down. An investigation finds untrained staff, contamination of evidence, and human error.
That's not surprising. This is not the first Department of Justice in the United States that have done shoddy DNA testing, and that's why I think that it's important for Canadians not to close our eyes, right? There's lots of potential for human error in DNA testing. And the sad part is now you've got an innocent man, right, that's been marked for life. And is that going to happen in Canada? Yeah, I think so.
On the count of three, you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy
For Carol Beatty, the victory is bittersweet. It's her daughter's birthday party, but Josiah isn't here. The courts have cleared his name, but Josiah's life is clouded by depression. A wrongful conviction and 4.5 years in prison have taken their toll.
There's still a lot of wounds that needs to be healed. I think he avoids the pain behind it, not facing it head on. To avoid it saves him a lot of pressure and pain.
Forensic science is improving all the time, but as we've seen, it's never perfect. There will always be that critical margin of error, a margin that can mean the difference between a lifetime behind bars or walking free. I'm Nicholas Campbell. Good night.
I want to call requests through heating vents and hear them answered with a whisper no. To crack the code of muscle slack and tense, let every second step in boots on snow. Complete your name with accents I can't place, that stumble where the syllables combine. Take depositions from a stranger's face, paint every insignificance a sign. So tell me nothing matters less or more. Say whatever we think actions are. We'll never know what anything was for. If near is just as far away as far, and I'm permitted one act I can say, I choose to sit here next to you and wait.